Hey, welcome back for another Moneyball sports analytics style spreadsheet using Microsoft Excel. Part one of this activity was testing out that Pythagorean theorem of baseball to major league teams, just comparing the runs versus runs scored against and putting it into that formula. And we found out that using just that basic formula, it predicted the win totals of all those baseball teams within about 4 on average, which is pretty cool. Today we're going to take a little deeper dive. It's going to require a little bit more work probably, but to predict the win or loss team for it. So we're not comparing our formula to past results to see how close it was. We are now taking some information and applying it to see what the win total will be for that team this year. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to just in A1 up here type in 2022 Phillies projected win total. All right. It doesn't have to be real pretty right now. Just I'm putting that up there on the top. You know, I can make it bold if I want to. And then in A2 I'm going to type in name, and in B2 position, and C I'm going to put in 2019, and then I'm going to put in 21 for D, and then in E I'm going to go 2019 multiplier, and I'll explain what that means here in a little bit. And then in F, I'm going to go 2021 multiplier, and then finally 2022 projection. And I'm going to leave the H column blank for right now. In I2, I'm going to put in total projected runs and total projected runs allowed and projected wins. Okay, so we got that there. Looks pretty good. I'm going to give us a little bit more room for the name on here. Position is probably fine. For the E column, I am going to actually E, F, and G. Actually, I could just do this with all these, couldn't I? I'll highlight the rest of those, and by going up to my home tab, looking at alignment and wrap text, use that just to kind of make that look a little nicer. And total projected runs, that's probably okay like that. Yeah, I think that'll be fine. That is a little bit tall right there. Total projected runs allowed. I could do that and then shrink that down a little bit. I think that should probably be fine. Okay. Now, if you remember previously, when we got the information from the teams on the stats, I used this baseball reference pages because of some of the features it offers. I want to go with the Phillies. You can use whatever team you want. I'm going to select Phillies here, and then I'm going to look down here and find the 40-man roster. So here it is. It actually has our people that are on the 10-day and 60-day recovering, all that kind of stuff. And so it's over 40, and I'm going to use this as my spreadsheet. So let's go here and up where it says share and export. Then I can go get as Excel workbook. I'm going to click on that. It's going to download it. I'm going to open that spreadsheet up, and I'm going to click yes. Do at your own risk. And enable editing. Okay, so we have these things here, the whole roster, okay, and If I go through here and I delete out the uniform number, I mean, you can leave that in if you want to. I don't need it though. I'm going to take out this. I am going to leave the position here, and then the rest of these I can delete those. And here we go. Now I can select the players here. Just going to go with copy and go over here and paste. Alright, so I'm done with this spreadsheet. I don't need this spreadsheet anymore. Don't need it. I am going to have this the site handy though, so I can make reference to that in a little bit. So I'm just going to kind of go dual split screen here, I guess, so we can see that. And now what I want to do is, if I select name, all these players here, I'm just going to highlight that and right click and go to sort and custom sort. And what do I want to sort it by? I'm going to click up here and I'm going to go by position, and I'm actually going to go from Z to A, so that way it puts position first. Alright, but it has them all sorted by position and that, so that works nicely for us there. Then I am also going to select my pictures here. Now highlight those, and I'm going to just move my cursor on the border of that selection where I have the four-way arrow there, and slide this down to about 25. I think will work good. Actually, you know what, I'm going to go down to 26. There we go. And then I can go name and position here. I'm going to make that bold, and then I'm going to scroll up here and just make this whole top, near the top row anyways, these headings, I'm going to have those be bold also. Okay, now just so if I go over here to this web page and I click above the position, and here I have Hoskins and all that, Odubel, Herrera, Nick Castellanos. Alright, so this is in the same order. If I look over here, then I get here to Aaron Nola, Familia, Jose Alvarado. Okay, so I just wanted to double check to make sure that these are all, you know, kind of in the same order as I edit these. Now what I want to do now is this is where the hard work comes in. Alright, not really hard work, but time consuming. So Rhys Hoskins here, we'll start off. He's all the positions I'm looking for the runs that they are responsible for, that they brought in, the points every time they came across home plate. For the pitchers, I'm looking for the runs that they allowed. Alright, and so I have 2019 and 2021. I wish I could find some way to make it where I have the current roster and I can see their runs allowed. I haven't found out a way to do that with this site. If any of you know, please sound off on the comments below and save everyone else some time. But what I did, like I go here to Rhys Hoskins, for example, and find the batting, and I'm not worrying about 2022 because that's an incomplete season. 2021 is a number I'm looking for in here, and if I find runs in 2021, he had 64, so I'm going to put 64 for 2021. 2020, I left that out just because of the weird COVID year. I don't even know if all the teams played the same amount of games, and a lot of players had to miss until they tested negative and everything. So I'm ignoring 2020, but I am going to roll with 2019. Now eventually, you know, if you do this long enough, 2020 will appear out of there. So I'm going 2021, and then I'm going to go 2019 for runs. So 2019 he had 86. All right, so I'm going to type in 86 there. All right, and then I'm going to fill this out for each of those position players down that roster. Okay, just to show you now how the picture would work, and then I'm going to fast forward here. So I could go here and find Aaron Nola, and what do I do here? Go back here to roster. All right, go here to Aaron Nola, click on Aaron Nola's name, and find pitching. And so 2021 for runs, and if I mouse over it, if you're not sure, runs scored or allowed. All right, so right here I'm just looking at his standard pitching, and I'll find the runs. 95 for 2021 and 91 for 2019. Okay, so 91 and 95. So over here I would go 91 and 95, and I would enter those runs for that. If there is not information from that, like if it's a rookie, I'm not going to type in 0. I'm just going to leave it blank at this time. Or if they don't have stats for that year, I'm just going to leave that blank. But I'm not at this time going to enter in zeros. Okay, so I'm going to go through, I'm going to enter in this information. You don't need to watch me do all that. And then after that, I will show you what the next step is. Okay, I have my information sorted. Just to find things easier, I did end up selecting these players up here, and I right clicked and then I alphabetized after, I had split them up by position, and it's alphabetized by first name. I mean, it doesn't really matter right now. If I were to spend more time on this, I would probably then go through and split these up, and do that. But we're just kind of going through to look at these numbers for right now. So the name is not that important to me at this point in time, just as long as I make sure I have the correct stats for each player. And you can see Alec Boehm here, for example. So 46 in 2021, 2019 he didn't play, so I left that just blank right there. Okay, now ideally I would have liked to have had 3 years of data, but again, I omitted 2020. If 2020 was a full year, I would have had 2019, 2020, 2021. Then I would have had a multiplier category for each of these. I want to weight the stats from the most recent year as I'm trying to project what they're going to do. And you can look on different websites. They each analytics place for sports kind of has their own projection on what you would expect that player to hit. I just thought I would try to come up with my own formula to use my own, just to see how close it would be. All right. So here's how this is going to work. 2019 for the multiplier here. All right. And I'm going to have this. I'm going to have last year's stats worth 3 times. There was none for 2020. If there was, I'd have it worth 2 times. But 2019, I'm going to have worth 1 time. All right. So here is how I'm going to determine the multiplier. I'm going to say equals if, and then I'm going to put a parentheses, and I'm going to type not, and I'm going to put in another open parentheses, and I'm going to go is blank, and then another open parentheses, and I'm going to put in C3 because I'm looking in this 2019 because it's a 2019 multiplier. All right, and then after that, I'm going to close that parenthesis for the C3, and then I'm going to close the parenthesis for the is blank, and finally, I'm going to put in a comma. What's going to happen if it is not blank? It's going to put in a number 3. All right, or I don't want to go 3. I'm sorry, I want to put in 1 because that's the 2019. I apologize. So I'll put in 1. So if there is something in that cell, it's going to put a 1 in this cell. Else, so just a comma here for my false statement, I'm going to put a 0, and then I'm going to put in a parenthesis. Okay, so there is nothing over here, so it's 0. So we don't have to worry about that on it. And this is going to come in for the projection in a moment. All right, and you'll see how that works. 2021 now, I'm going to use a similar formula. I'm going to go equals if, open parenthesis, not, open parenthesis, is blank. And after that, I'm going to put in an open parenthesis. And this time I'm looking in the D column. So D3, because that's the one that corresponds with this cell. And after the D3, I need to close that parenthesis and then close the next parenthesis for the is blank. And then I can put in a comma. And this time I'm going to put in a 3. So if there's something in the cell, it's going to show up as there's going to be a 3 in this cell. And then for the false, comma, 0, and then close that parenthesis. I'm going to press enter, and here we have that. Okay, so since there is a number in this one, then a 3 is showing up for the multiplier. So how is this going to be with my projection? Okay, I didn't want to just assume they're going to score the exact same as last year. I kind of wanted to, and again, this is why 3 numbers would be better, but 2020 kind of goofed us up there. And if you wanted to, I suppose you could find out how many they would have scored in 2020 if it was a full game season. But again, where so many players had to miss time for COVID testing and all that, I didn't want to mess with that right here. So I'm just going with what I could control, which was a full season in 2019 and 2021. Okay, so what we would do here for 2022 is this. We can go with equals, and I do go a little overboard with the parentheses, so I apologize on this if that bothers you, but I go equals, and then I'm going to go open parenthesis, and I'm going to go C3 times E3. Okay, so this here multiplied this, which is going to be 0. Okay, but I want to make sure I include it in there anyway so I can fill down. All right, then after that E3, I'm going to close the parentheses, and I'm going to put in a plus, and then an open parentheses. And on this one, I'm going to go D3 and times F3. Okay, which is right here. So I'm taking these two multiplied, and I'm adding it to these two multiplied. All right, and then I'm going to close that parenthesis up, and then I'm going to close the next parenthesis up. So that way it's like this is going to be the numerator of a fraction. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide by parentheses, and I'm going to go E3 plus F3. And then I'm going to close that. So now we can see this. This is like a weighted average, right? This is being factored in 3 times. This one is being factored in 1 time. And then we're dividing by, the total of 3 and 1. And again, if this was 3 things, then if I had 2020, then I would have done a part of the formula where I would take the 2020 with the multiplier and then included that in there also. Okay, so I'm going to press enter, and then I have my projection. All right, so now what I can do is I'm just going to drag this down till I get to the bottom of my formula. Some of these on here are going to get this little message on here because they didn't have any stats. Bryson Stott is a rookie this year. Okay, so I'm going to highlight that, and I'm going to delete it, and I'm going to do that with the others, and I'll show you why later. So these here, I'm just clearing those out where I get that nasty message. And then what I'm going to do on the side here is I'm just going to put an asterisk in that blank space. So that way, if I want to play around with those numbers and try to project what they're going to do, then I still have a note left to myself where You know, these aren't actual based off of stats. This is just off of other projections. Or if I'm like, hey, I want to see what would happen if Bryson Stott came across base 30 times this year, you know, then I would, or 10 times, or what's the minimum times he would have to come across base in order for me to get to my projected wins to get to the playoffs, right? Okay, so, oops. So we have that there. And I think that's fine. One other thing that I probably am going to do for this, actually, I can take these three numbers. I'll go with, yeah, with these ones here. And I'm actually just going to fill this all the way down to the bottom because it's going to work the same because we have the same category. But then what I can do when I get up, once I'm done with that, then I'm just going to delete everything in these blank columns, and I'm just leaving these here in case I need room for more stuff later on. Okay, so now as we look in here, we can see what our projected amount is for these years. I need to take these three out also. Okay, and then here I can go, I can actually just copy these and paste these up there. So that way it matches and I can see that all the way down. All right, now what I would like to do next is over here in the F column, F23, I'm going to put in average. I'm going to make that bold. And then I'm going to use the equal average in this G column, just selecting the numbers in this column up here. All right. So that way we kind of have an average of hitters there. So if I wanted to, I could say, well, what if I put the average in for all these, which isn't really realistic. I'm actually going to leave these blank up here just for kind of a worst case scenario, you know. Okay, now going down here to the pitchers, I can select the values here. Like for Morales, he doesn't have any stats right there, so I'm going to take that out. James MacArthur. In here we do have one right there. Any others without those errors in there? I do not believe so. So that was Francisco and James. Okay, good. So with those two, I'll put the asterisks right there just to make a note of it to myself that they have no previous stats to go with. And then down here, I'll do the same thing. I'm going to type in average, make that bold, and then equal average right here. And then I'm going to select all these here and hit enter. Okay. So we have this information. So what I want to do here is for the total projected runs, I'm just going to equal sum, and I'm going to select these values here. Okay, right out of that whole row. And I'm going to select that empty cell too, so that way if I want to add something to it, it's going to reflect appropriately up at the top. Okay, then I want to go runs allowed, so I'm going to go equal sum, and then I'm going to scroll down and select these values and then enter. Okay, so these are our projected runs, not factoring in our rookies. Okay, and to find the projected wins, if you remember back to last formula, if you're just joining us for the first time, basically you take the run squared and you divide it by run squared plus runs allowed squared. So the formula on here in this case with Excel is going to be equals, and again I'm probably going to go overboard with the parentheses, just the way I am. Alright, so I'm going to go I3, this cell right here, okay, I3, and then the caret squared, so that's our runs squared, our projected runs squared, and then I'm going to close that parentheses, and then I'm going to divide by open parenthesis and open parenthesis, and I'll go I3 squared close parenthesis plus, because that's our runs projected, and then I need to add it to the squared value of projected runs allowed. So open parenthesis, J3, caret and 2 for squared. Alright, and then I need to close that up, and then I close that up. And if I press enter here, it's going to give me a decimal. Alright, in this case, like 59%, whatever. And if you want to see the wins projected, then all I'm going to do is I'm just going to highlight that, and I'm going to add one more thing to this formula right at the end. Click up here in the formula bar. I'm going to multiply it by 162 for 162 games in a season. Then I'll press enter. And in this case, it's going to give me 94.8. There is no way the Philadelphia Phillies are going to win 95 games. But if we look at this, that is assuming that these rookies who have only been here for 1 year, or that have been added to the roster that have none, it assumes that they are going to give up no innings or give up no runs, which is not going to happen, right? So like I mentioned before, I'm not going to adjust this batting. I'm just going to find kind of the rough estimate here about what they would give up. And what, let's say here I look at the average, so I'm just going to say 26. I'm going to round up, okay? So up here for Francisco Morales, 26, and for MacArthur, 26. All right, that's going to change everything up a little bit, and when I scroll up here to the top and look at this now, that adjusted my total projected runs allowed up here, and it also changed my projected wins to 87, 87.8, 87. So just out of curiosity, you go here, and I'm going to search what is the Phillies win projection for 2022. I'm just going to look at this prediction. And if we look at this, or maybe I'll go projected win total Phillies 2022. If I find it, okay, here we go. So a little bit more convenient to look at up here. The consensus line for the Phillies projected win total this season is 86.5. So Las Vegas is putting the over-under at 86.5, and right here we're at 87.8. That's pretty crazy how accurate that is. And again, if you research Pythagorean theorem for baseball, you could find the adjusted formula. It's a little bit different than the one we used here, and you could probably find more accurate ways for the projection. Again, I'm just leaving the batting up here at 0, you know, just because I'm not thinking that someone's going to just come in as a rookie and automatically necessarily be running across the base 44 times. That seems a little high to me, you know. But as far as pitching goes, I felt a little more confident changing that. And again, if you want to, you can play around with those numbers and just look at that and say, hey, if these people up here come across base this many times, and if we get only this many scored runs from these pitchers, and you look up online what the amount of projected win total is for the playoffs, it'd be something fun to see, just to kind of have that magic number and say, hey, if they make 87 wins, or if they make X amount of wins, that's probably going to get them to the playoffs. That means these players are going to have to perform this amount of runs for us. And then if those players go in and it looks like they're not going to get that productivity, then maybe that team can say, hey, we need to find someone else who we can put in who's going to get us closer to that magic number. So again, analytics, not the only thing that should go into putting together a team, but I think it's fun as a fan to kind of invest your time and your interest into your team, and allows you to kind of take that deep dive into their stats and to kind of see what kind of moves that your team is making, and checking out maybe analytics are having a lot to do with it, maybe not as much. So appreciate you watching. Let me know what you think in the comments. And again, if you find a way that allows us to see a current team roster and find all their runs and runs allowed all in the same table, man, please let us know, because that would save everybody a ton of time. So have some fun with it, and good luck to your baseball teams this season too. Appreciate you watching.